Welcome to this May 2nd edition of The Truth. I'm John Gordon. We've got a jam-packed show for you. Today I'm going to go over some of the news from this week, including it's James Comey's turn in the barrel, and it's not looking good for him. And then we're going to talk about the attempted assassination, number 4, against Donald Trump now, or number 3 actually. I'm getting ahead of myself, that occurred at the White House Correspondents Dinner last Saturday night in Washington. And then Jimmy Kimmel, not my favorite, had some choice words to say about Trump and potential assassinations on him. And, we talk about a comedian's timing. The timing of his comments could not have been worse for him. We'll get into that a little bit. And then Minnesota is still in the news about fraud and Tim Walz's attempt to deflect responsibility. J.D. Vance, the fraud czar, we've got a clip from him coming up. And then as difficult as it is to talk about and to watch, we have a reconstruction of the 30-06 alleged bullet that struck Charlie Kirk. And for me, it is pretty compelling evidence that it was not Tyler Robinson, but I'll let you be the judge. Today's version of the truth, not version, episode, but we don't have versions of the truth, we just have episodes of the truth to be accurate, is brought to you by Perfect Circle Renewable Energy. They're a restaurant services company located in Atlanta, Georgia. And our studio sponsor is Bone Frog Coffee. And I start my day every day with Bone Frog Coffee. I really am enjoying this coffee. And this is the medium roasted brew that I've settled in on. But we'll talk about Bone Frog a little later on in the broadcast. But James Comey and Donald Trump really dislike each other. And the deep state has been after Trump, as you well know, for many years. And as much as they attack him, as much as they come after him, they have not been able to come up with anything that sticks. And that's because they have no evidence that he has violated laws. Not true with the deep state. And it is starting to unravel at the edges. We will see. I am optimistic. I'm excited about the possibilities because I think James Comey is the Antichrist. He helped put together the Russia collusion hoax. He was playing games with Hillary Clinton before the election in 2016 about her infamous email server and the FBI's investigation of the same. He is the consummate swamp creature, and I've never cared for him because he is so pious and so holier than thou and so up above everybody else. He is tall in stature, but very small in his values, in my estimation. Here's what Trump had to say about James Comey just a couple of days ago.
Earlier today, former FBI Director James Comey, Mr. Higher Honor, turned himself in, made his first court appearance after being indicted for his 8647 social media post in court. Comey was informed that each charge carries up to 5 years in prison. Speaking with reporters in the White House today, President Trump did address Comey's arrest. Here's what he said.
Do you really think that he was endangering your life or threatening your life with that?
Well, if anybody knows anything about crime, they know 86. You know what 86? It's a mob term for kill him.
Do you really think your life was in danger?
Probably. I don't know. You know, based on what I'm seeing out there, yeah. The people like Comey have created tremendous danger. Comey is a dirty cop. He's a very dirty cop.
Well, that about sums it up, and I think Comey is on the hot seat, right along with John Brennan, who is under investigation by a grand jury as we speak, just an hour north of West Palm Beach. We hope to be able to follow those proceedings with you if they return an indictment and if he goes to jail. But Trump later tweeted out on Comey, 86, and it's on your screen. If you're on the radio, you can't see our graphics. There's an easy solution to that. Just come over to getter.com and hit the live button and search for John Gordon Truth. We're right there. If you're on another feed, we would love for you to come over and join the John Gordon Truth feed. We're up on John Fredericks. We're up on cdm.press. We would love for you to come over and be a part of our community, and just go on Getter, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, X, and Instagram. Look for John Gordon Truth. Please subscribe. Now, I've got some exciting news to share with you. Let's hold that thought for a minute. But if you want to see the graphics, you want to see the video version of the clips, just go there. On Getter, you can even interact with us in the live chat. So just go to getter.com, hit the live button, look for John Gordon Truth, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. If you do, feel free to share the videos with your friends, relatives, neighbors, people that you would like to think that might enjoy the content. We'd love to have you, but please subscribe. 98% of you listen to our program on the radio, mostly ad-free. If you would be willing to come over to Getter, Rumble, YouTube, X, Instagram, and just subscribe, Facebook, subscribe to us, I would be eternally grateful. I'm going to talk more about that in just a minute. But this is what Trump tweeted out after that interview. He said, 86 is a mob term for kill him. They say 86 him. 8647 means kill President Trump. James Comey, who is a dirty cop, one of the worst known, this full well 8 miles out, 6 feet down. Didn't he also lie to the FBI about this? I think so, President Donald J. Trump. So what President Trump is referring to, obviously you know about the seashells put on the beach in New Jersey where Comey was lounging with his wife, and they went for a walk and just stumbled upon this collection of shells. Well, that lie fell apart pretty quickly. And then he disingenuously said, well, I don't know what 86 meant. I thought that just meant take it off the menu if you're in a restaurant. Well, you really have to not just be born in the middle of the night to believe that, but you'd have to be born in the middle of the night last night to believe that the former head of the FBI honestly didn't know what 86 meant. Plus, his footprints are all around the collection of shells. And a YouTuber analyzed his shoe. He was sitting in a lounge chair with his feet up. He zoomed in on the shoe, got the pattern of the shoes, got the size of the shoes, superimposed it over the footprints right next to the seashells, where obviously someone was standing when they planted the seashells there. It's identical match to James Comey. And guess what? There are no other footprints. Ergo, I think we got him dead to rights. And so Comey's going down. I certainly hope so. He's a loathsome character. I think that probably early on in his career, I've got the hunch that he was probably a pretty good guy, and has a daughter that he and his wife raised. She's an attorney, works for the federal government in the Department of Justice. He gets props for that, and he served with distinction for many years. But there's something about it, folks, and I have not been able to put my finger on it. I keep looking for the wizard. I can't find the wizard. Hell, I can't even find the curtain. But we're going to continue to search for it. I suspect that when we do find the curtain, we're going to look behind it, and we're going to find Clapper and Comey and Brennan and Christopher Wray, probably Eric Swalwell and Pencil Neck, Shifty Shift, and Nancy Pelosi. There is the notion of the deep state is real. It is legit. Well, it's actually illegit, but it's legit that there is this notion of a deep state. We've had proof time after time after time. I am generally skeptical when I hear the official narratives on things, on tragedies or events. As you know, I come with a hefty amount of skepticism. That's my natural reflex. Not that that's the way that my DNA is wired, but just I've been conditioned over the last 60 years to learn that things that we are told turn out to be 180 degrees from what we are told. In the case of JFK and RFK and MLK, 60 years after the fact. So now, you know, I am proactively looking to poke holes in the narrative. Well, I got to tell you, I can't really poke any holes in the narrative, the official explanation about the attempted assassination of President Trump at the White House Correspondents Dinner in Washington last Saturday night. But I will always remain open to the possibility. There are things that don't add up about it, but first, let's go look at a clip about the assassination attempt and watch. If you're on Getter, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X, look very carefully and start your gaze over to the left-hand side of the screen, high and to the left, and you will see the shooter emerge. And man, this guy must have run track in high school and college. Let's look at the clip, Anthony.
Now to the shooting at the White House Correspondents Association dinner, where newly released footage shows the moment the alleged shooter ran through a magnetometer. Take a look here. This comes after Cole Allen appeared in court yesterday, with the judge ruling that he will remain in custody, despite his lawyers initially arguing that he is not a risk to the public, writing, quote, Mr. Allen has no criminal history, not even prior arrest, which alone would rebut the presumption of detention. And according to the government's memorandum, Mr. Allen chose to leave nearly half of the shotgun ammunition in the hotel room, 20 rounds, as well as a third magazine, alleged facts that make little sense under the government's theory that he intended to commit a mass shooting. And Secret Service Director Sean Curran discussed the officer who was shot. Listen here.
All the evidence that I've seen, the suspect shot our officer point-blank range with a shotgun. Our officer heroically returned fire while being shot point-blank range in the chest with a shotgun and was able to get off 5 shots. It's great training. The officer just acted heroically.
Okay, so I said at the top of this segment that I would talk about some of the things that don't add up to me. Well, the point that Sean was making there is one of the things that I can't really understand. I mean, it wasn't just the officer that was shot with the shotgun that returned fire. There were other officers that fired at the shooter as well. The thing I continually can't understand or explain is why none of the bullets land. I mean, how did these people that are trained in marksmanship, the shooter was at point blank range. Well, that means that the Secret Service agent was at point blank range with the shooter and the Secret Service agent's pistol. How did he miss? I don't know. How did the Secret Service agent in West Palm Beach miss when they were shooting at Ralph and they were face to face, eyeball to eyeball? That makes me wonder a little bit. The second thing that I find to be extraordinarily surprising, the shooter was a guest at the Washington Hilton Hotel. He checked in a day before after having taken a train all the way across the United States. Now, that doesn't really make sense to me either. I mean, if I was going to do something and I was carrying a gun across country, I would probably think about maybe shipping it by UPS or some other way to get the gun there, and I would fly to Washington. He took an Amtrak. I think it took 72 hours for him to get from the West Coast, Los Angeles, to Washington, D.C., that doesn't really add up to me. There's no inference that I can draw from that other than maybe this guy was just stupid. I definitely think this guy was stupid, but his past argues against that. He was a teacher. He was well-liked, well-respected. As you heard on the clip, no criminal background. That he does not fit the profile of your typical assassin. Of course, there is the obligatory video of him appearing in a commercial in 2018, I believe, so 8 years ago. It seems like the shooter's always in a commercial for BlackRock or somebody. I'm no inference there either. But these are just things that are kind of unique, surprising. Anyway, so he takes the train, brings his rifle with him, his pistol and his ammunition, gets off in Washington and goes to the Hilton, checks in, and he's there for 24 hours before the event, scopes the place out, cases it out, and discovers that he can take a stairwell down 12 flights of stairs, exit right there by the magnetometer, run through the magnetometer. Well, look, I mean, the chances of him getting past, did you see the Secret Service response just in the lobby? How many of them were there, Anthony? You didn't happen to count, did you? It looks to me like there were 25, 20, 25, 30, a lot. And then, so actually, they didn't bring him down. He actually tripped. And when he tripped, they pounced on him, held him down, got the gun away from him, put him in handcuffs, and the rest is history. But just the idea that this guy would be so delusional to think that he could sprint past the magnetometer, get into the auditorium where the dinner is, assume a shooter's position, and then fire at the president without being gunned down himself is just bizarre to me. So one inference that I would consider is that maybe this was an attempted suicide by cop, and maybe he wanted to go out with some amount of notoriety. It's the only working theory I can come up with, because if his real intent was to injure the president, I think his strategy and his plan was severely flawed. So that does not make sense to me. The last thing that does not make sense to me, and Anthony, I don't know, maybe you can pull this up and put it in this monologue in post, but when the shots rang out, and you can see this on film, President Trump has his security detail, Secret Service, and J.D. Vance has his detail, and they're all specifically assigned to one or the other. And then there are details for the Secretary of the Treasury and Commerce and other cabinet officers. But the thing that was remarkable to me and a number of other YouTubers is that you can see that as the shots rang out, Vance's detail was on him immediately. They grabbed him by the suit and they pulled him out of his chair and off the stage and got him to safety. Now, President Trump's detail, it was different. There was a guy who jumped up and stood behind Trump, which I don't really understand. I would think he would jump in front of Trump, but not behind him. I'm not sure. But he just stood there. There was no grabbing the president and pulling him off stage. And I measured the time from when Vance got off stage to the time President Trump got off stage, and I'm going to count it out for you right now. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006, 1007. Now, if I were to tell you it was 7 seconds, you'd say, oh, that's no time at all. But when you count it out, 7 seconds feels like an eternity. if there was an active shooter, and if he had breached the auditorium, 7 seconds would be a long time. And so that does make the hair on the back of my neck stand up. It does very much get my attention. The protocol should have been just the reverse. If anybody was going to get preferential treatment, it should have been the president. The moment those shots rang out, he should have been grabbed from behind and dragged off the stage with the First Lady and gotten to safety. But instead, we saw just the reverse. Vance was pulled off a stage. Trump was left there exposed for a full 7 seconds. Now, you can make of that what you wish. I don't know. I am guessing that maybe it took a while for the training to kick in. Maybe President Trump's detail was just in shock and denial. I mean, President Trump himself said that when the first bang went off, he thought it was a food tray. Maybe they thought it was a food tray, and then Crackle over the radio said that there was a shooter and they swung into action. So I don't know. I'm not throwing anybody under the proverbial bus. I'm just saying it does not make sense to me that Trump was exposed for 7 seconds while Vance was already off stage and back behind the stage in safety. But this was on the heels of Jimmy Kimmel making some very uncharitable, I think, disgraceful comments. Do we have Kimmel's clip? Okay, let's roll Jimmy Kimmel. No, we don't have Jimmy Kimmel's clip, but he was on his show and he said, oh, the First Lady has the air of an expectant widow about her. How deplorable is that? How just utterly disrespectful. I mean, it's just shocking to me that anyone's brain could operate in that fashion. Now, I've just become aware over the last week that there's this guy on YouTube, and he posts every day comments and commentary demeaning President Trump. And I'm told that the guy actually is a conservative and loves Trump. But he is making so much money on YouTube. I'm talking about in the tens of millions of dollars based on the information that I've been provided. It's called the Midas Touch. And all he does is bash Trump every day for about 10, 15 minutes. And but he'll also post multiple times a day. And he's just raking it in from YouTube because there are a lot of sick people in the world. Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing. And he's just profiting off of his, by spewing this hate. Now, some people say, oh, well, you know, it's the left that is triggering all of this violence and is causing people to act out like this. I don't know. What do you think? Do you buy that? I don't really buy it. Yes, they are spewing hate. They are talking in terms that trigger people. But can someone make you do something that is illegal, immoral, and just wrong based on their speech? And I'm just here to tell you folks, it ain't happening to me. There is no one on earth I know that could talk me into or lure me into doing something that is illegal or would be unconscionable and against my guiding light. And I have a sense that you feel the same way. If you do, I'd like to hear from you. Email me, johngordontruth@gmail.com. If you don't, email me that too. I would really like to get inside the head of people that are so malleable and so subject to being influenced that some frickin' late night comedian could cause them to go in and commit a violent act against a political figure. I just basically think that someone that would do that is just crazed. I mean, you know, there have been acts of political violence in this country and around the world but I just don't blame it on what other people say. I think that in my belief, and my strong belief is that we are all singularly accountable for our actions. I don't think anyone else is responsible for anything I do. Now, my wife influences me a lot. Go to Publix, here's your shopping list. Go to the hardware store, here's your shopping list. Yakety yak yak yak. But if you heard what I said, it would be immoral, illegal, unethical, unconscionable acts. No one is going to convince me to engage in that kind of activity. And I don't think people are going to convince you, our listeners, to do something that is against your conscience and your God and your belief system. So I just don't buy that talk track. I think that lets the shooter off the hook to some degree. And so I just don't like it that, but I don't have a problem saying Jimmy Kimmel is messed up. I think he clearly does it for clicks, for viewership, translation, at the end of the day, for money. And I think that's despicable. I think it is despicable. We live in the greatest country on earth. President Trump works 15, 18 hours a day. He hardly ever takes a day off. He may come to Mar-a-Lago and go play a round of golf, but before he goes to golf, he's over there working, and when he comes back, he's working. There's an event every night that he's here. The guy just never rests. I don't know how he does it. I go play an hour and a half of tennis, and I have to come home and take a siesta. I really don't know how he keeps up the pace that he does, but he is the hardest working person. Really, next to Elon Musk, I would say he may be one of the hardest working people in America today. And I think he is, without question, the most dedicated and hardworking president of my lifetime. And he is reshaping our country and the world every single day. He is eliminating the threat of terrorism from Iran, who is engaged in state-sponsored terrorism for 50 years. He is getting the price of energy down to modern-day historic lows. And we will get back there, mark my word. Crime is coming down in America. Unemployment has sort of plateaued, or I shouldn't say plateaued, but it's sticky. It's not coming down as quickly as we would like. But inflation is way down, although with the war in Iran, it has ticked back up now to 3.2, 3.4%, when it was down below 2, on its way to 2. And it will get back there, but the economy is smoking. I mean, the stock market is setting record highs every day. And this economy, consumer confidence is up. Industry is coming into this country and building bricks and mortar like we've never seen before. We've got Kevin Walsh, who should be confirmed maybe as early as this week, if not next, as the new Fed chair. And I think that he has already signaled that he wants to lower interest rates. And there's a really good reason for that, folks. One reason is it will help the economy. But the other reason, and it's a reason that no one really is talking about, there are some, but not many, is that our federal deficit is $39 trillion a year. The interest payments on that alone are over $1 trillion. It was the highest line item until the Defense Department the Department of War got another boost from Trump. So now it's back to being number 2. But the interest rates don't just affect business and individuals. It also affects government borrowing. And so if you can lower the amount of interest that the federal government is having to pay, then the management of the debt becomes much more, I can't say easy, but it's much less severe than if you're paying the higher interest rates. And I just don't think Jerome Powell gets that. He is obsessed about inflation. I get it. We've got to tame inflation, but there are other ways to tame inflation as well. The principal way you tame inflation is get the price of energy down. Petroleum is in virtually everything you touch, buy, or consume on a daily basis. If you're eating food at a restaurant, it got trucked to that restaurant. If you're eating out of a plastic container, that was made with petroleum. I mean, it's just ubiquitous throughout our supply chain that petroleum is an essential ingredient of either making the product or delivering the product. And so that is reflected in the cost of the product. So you get the price of energy down, and also Trump is making it easier to build power plants too. And so you provide more supply for electrical energy. You get the supply up with a constant demand, the price is going to start to tick down. That's the best way to manage inflation. It's a more difficult process, but over a long period of time, it is the best strategy, not artificially tinkering with it with interest rates. But you get interest rates down, not only is it cheaper for the federal government to service its debt, but then the whole tide rises. And if the whole tide rises, you have a bigger GDP as a relationship to the debt. So it all will work if President Trump has the right team, and Jerome Powell has been a thorn in his side. He has been a nemesis to President Trump's economic agenda, and that's all going to come to a rapid end May 15th, just 2 weeks from now, when Powell's term as chairman expires, and we can get Kevin Walsh in. And this guy is a smart cookie. He went to Stanford. He was the governor on the Federal Reserve for a number of years, and he actually is a resident of Palm Beach. I saw him the other night at dinner, and I've not spoken to anybody who knows him that don't report that he is a wonderful, humble, down-to-earth, smart guy who loves our country. That's what we need. Meanwhile, the Justice Department said that they're no longer investigating Jerome Powell for the $2 billion cost overruns of the Federal Reserve building in Washington, which is such a sham. Just the waste of our dollars, our tax dollars. They spend it like drunken sailors. And there needs to be accountability. I'm not in favor of political retribution. I think Trump was clearly trying to pressure and leverage Powell. I don't think that he could have prosecuted him for anything. He could fire him for malfeasance, but unless you're going to be able to prove that some of that $2 billion for the renovations got back into Powell's pocket or into his cronies' pockets without delivering the service or the goods, I don't know what you're going to try. I don't know what you're going to charge him for. You can charge him as a dumbass, but I don't think last time I checked, there's no law against that in America. Maybe there should be, but it never resonated with me that the Justice Department was going to prosecute Jerome Powell because there was a $2 billion cost overrun for renovating the Fed building in Washington. So, all right, where did we leave off? Did we get Melania's response to Jimmy Kimmel? I kind of got off track there, didn't I? So when Jimmy Kimmel made that very impertinent remark, Melania tweeted, "Kimmel's hateful and violent rhetoric is intended to divide our country." I agree with that. His monologue, I actually think it was intended to ring his cash register because unfortunately there's enough sick people in this country that will buy that stuff and line his pockets because of his hateful talk. But his monologue about my family isn't comedy. His words are corrosive and deepens the political sickness within America. That's very well put. People like Kimmel shouldn't have the opportunity to enter our homes each evening to spread hate. Are you listening to that, ABC? Your license comes from the federal government, you know, And right now, the FCC is in the hands of a Trump appointee. A coward, Kimmel hides behind ABC because he knows the network will keep him running cover to protect him. Enough is enough. It's time for ABC to take a stand. How many times will ABC's leadership enable Kimmel's atrocious behavior at the expense of our community? Those are very well put words, and I totally agree with the First Lady's assessment of Jimmy Kimmel. The moment I heard what he said, I immediately wrote an email to ABC and said to fire Jimmy Kimmel. Now, I'm not saying that my email is going to have any persuasive effect at all, other than if enough people will also write to them, maybe they will start to feel the heat and they will rethink Jimmy Kimmel's contract. But you can go to the, just go on to abc.com, look for Contact Us, and you'll have to answer a few questions like it's the Kimmel Show, the Tonight Show, what your comments are, and just say, get rid of Kimmel. And if enough people do that, they will. And the other thing you can do, you can't stop what you've already stopped, but just don't watch him. Just, if you're channel surfing and he pops up, just keep moving. That's the ultimate way to get him off the air, is just for enough people to stop watching. And the ABC has constructed this thing where, you know, they can only appeal to a small percentage of the market. They can only appeal to left, lunatic, liberal Democrats, not even moderate Democrats. I think, you know, you may have heard me say in the past, I would love to see us start a conversation in America today, and we begin the conversation with, on what can we agree? I think that would be a great conversation starter instead of all the tension and the combativeness. But can we agree that violence of any type should be condemned and we should not permit it in our society? If 320 million Americans could say that, then I think that we would eliminate a lot of the madness. Now, the reason that some Democrats might be reluctant to agree to that is because Democrats are not the ones getting shot. It's Republicans and conservatives that are being fired upon. Charlie Kirk, Donald Trump. Just think about the people of late who have been assaulted. Police officers, they're not the defunded police officers. They're the Secret Service agent at the Washington Hilton. They're doing his job protecting the President of the United States as a patriot that are getting shot. It's not the leftist lunatics that are getting the political violence. And so, you know, maybe they just go along with it because they think ultimately that's how they're going to get their way. But that just shows you how stupid they are, because we've seen time and time again, every time they do something like that, every time they commit violence, what they do is they create a martyr and they become bigger in death than they were in life. And when they took a shot at President Trump in Butler, the reaction was so overwhelming, he picked up hundreds of thousands of sympathetic people that voted for him that may not otherwise have voted for Trump. So their strategies are flawed. It has a converse effect, and it just shows you how really dumb they are. Okay, well, let's go to a happier subject. Let's talk about fraud in Minnesota. Oh my God, can you believe that fraud in Minnesota is happier? I mean, it's just unbelievable. $30 billion of your money and mine has been siphoned out, sucked out by the Quality Leering Center. I mean, If you were to write a sitcom or write a movie, can you think of a more bizarre or ironical way to highlight the issue than to name your learning center the Quality Learning Center? I mean, it kind of says it all, doesn't it? Here is what an ex-Minnesota state trooper turned whistleblower has to say about fraud in Minnesota.
More than once, I heard an owner or employee respond when we asked where they first learned about the daycare scam. They would say they had first heard about it while in the refugee camp in Kenya. These individuals told us that they had heard you could run the scam in a number of different states, but it was easiest and you could make the most money doing it in Minnesota. This investigation resulted in the federal indictment in 2017 of the owner of Salama Childcare Center. That owner eventually pled guilty and was sentenced in 2018 to 2 years in prison and was ordered to pay restitution of over $1.4 million. The Salama Childcare Center was located at 1411 Nicollet Avenue in Minneapolis. That address might ring a bell for some of you because of a YouTube video taken last December at the Quality Learning Center, which was being operated at the same address.
Yeah, you go in the Quality Learning Center and nobody's in there. One person to answer the door that wouldn't let anybody in. Well, do you know how close Tim Walz came to being vice president of the United States? That means he's one heartbeat away, would have been, could have been. Thank God he wasn't. One heartbeat away from the presidency of the United States. Good Lord. Can you imagine what kind of shape we would have been in if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz had taken the White House? I just couldn't even want to contemplate what this world and this life and this country would be like under their leadership. But here's that very dynamic Tim Walz and his explanation of fraud in Minnesota.
The U.S. Government Accountability Office out with a new report identifying $186 billion of improper payments across 64 programs in fiscal year 2025 alone. It's one reason why the federal government is ramping up its fraud crackdown. Yesterday, authorities raided more than 20 locations in Minnesota, including multiple child care centers, and now, as well, the infamous Quality Learning Center. Investigators say some state-licensed daycares may have been billing for services that were never provided, and the raids are part of the broader fraud probe involving largely Somali-owned businesses. In other words, a federal operation, something Governor Tim Walz doesn't seem to realize.
We've created additional checks and balances. We've brought on more investigators, more auditors, more law enforcement agencies, as well as an outside firm to take a look at high-risk programs. People who have ripped us off are getting caught, and they are going to jail, just like today. I've said the buck stops with me. And as I know some of you will take that as an open invitation to play politics with every incident of fraud that takes place here in Minnesota, even though I have to tell you, the statistics show it's happening in red states more than here, but so be it.
What statistics? Whose statistics? Don't tell us. Show us. Give us the statistics. But they never do. They make these outlandish claims, but they never back it up with any facts or any probative information. They just make a spurious claim, and unfortunately, there are enough people in this country that will just take it at face value and run with it. But that is just baloney. I'm not saying that there's not fraud in red states. Of course there is. Go to my state of Georgia. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of fraud that takes place in the state of Georgia, and probably right here in the state of Florida too. I mean, all the fraud needs to end. It's not a red state, blue state issue, you dummy. It's a right and wrong issue. You're either stealing or you're not. And you don't have to, and he says, oh, I'm sure people will politicize it. And what does he do? He proceeds to politicize it. What a hypocrite. Boy, he gets me going. Well, isn't it ironical that his opponent in 2024 is now the vice president of the United States and our country's fraud czar? Here's Vice President Vance.
Well, we have to follow the law where it leads. And what we know is that there were multiple Minnesota authorities who were turning a blind eye to this fraud. What we don't yet know is whether they knew it was going on as it was going on. But that's one of the things that we're looking at with these investigations.
So, I mean, I think that Wall says the buck stops with him. I certainly hope it does. I want to know, did any of that money get into his pockets? And where are his offshore bank accounts? Now, I have no evidence or proof of that, but when you're the leader of the state and you're allowing this to go on, and it is the worst kept secret in America that it is going on, and you've got people in Somalia saying, go to America because you can scam the government and you can get free money, and the easiest place to do it is in Minnesota. Don't you think the frickin' governor of Minnesota might have an inkling of that? And if he did and he didn't stop it, the next question is why? My suspicion is that it might end up back in his pocket, or his spouse, or his family. I don't know. Now, you know, we're the truth. I don't want to make stuff up, but so I'm being very clear that I don't have evidence of that. But I do think that there is a hefty amount of justifiable suspicion that warrants the FBI to go into Minnesota and follow the facts, follow where the evidence leads, and if it leads to Tim Walz, so be it. The buck stops with him, as he acknowledges. So I think that stay tuned, and we'll see where it goes. Now, finally, today we have A.M. Gold back. She came and sat in the studio with us a couple of weeks ago. She's the author of that book, Shush Boom, and she's a New Yorker and a conservative and Jewish. So she has unique perspectives that you would not necessarily think that someone like her may necessarily hold, but it was an interesting interview, and I very much like her. She's a delightful person, incredibly smart. We also have Drew Allen coming on. He is an author and a publicist, and he's got a new book out called Clinton Hoax Obama Coup, the declassified story of the Trump-Russia delusion. And we had a good interview with Drew, but he and I kind of got into it over the death of Charlie Kirk. He clings to the notion that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie. I've made no bones about it. I don't believe that. I just don't believe the narrative. And part of what we talked about was what a 30-06 would do to the victim of a 30-06 bullet. So I did not know that Anthony had pulled this video prior to the interview. Had I known that, I would have played it during the interview so that Drew could have responded to it. But for those of you on our live stream, let's take a look at this last clip. If you're on the radio, you're really not going to get much out of it. I'll narrate it for you as we go along. Roll the clip, please, Sir Anthony. So what you see here is a composition of a human body. It is made of material that is supposed to resemble the density of a human being. And you can see from the video the absolute complete devastation that would result from a 30-06 being shot at a human being from 140 yards. It's violent. It's traumatic. And we're told that this little pinprick of a wound on Charlie's neck that did not exit the body came from a 30-06? No. I mean, there's just no way. I mean, that's the thing that really triggers me, folks, is that we are told things that we're supposed to believe that our own eyes, ears, and brain tell us are not possible. And I put that narrative in that category. A 30-06, I don't care what kind of bullet it was. Hard casing, soft casing. I've had several of you write to me saying what a 30-06 shell or ammunition would do. And The characteristics are different, but the outcome is the same. The victim would be obliterated. And I hate to speak in such graphic terms about someone that I knew and someone that I respected, but it is what it is at this point. And we don't know the truth of what happened to Charlie Kirk. I don't know that we're going to get it. I'm hopeful that Tyler Robinson will be able to live, that he won't be Epstein before he gets to trial. I'm hopeful that he will be able to take the stand and will tell the truth, and that the defense will do a sufficient job. I just don't see any way that he gets convicted beyond a reasonable doubt. That's my contention. Today's broadcast is brought to you by Perfect Circle Renewable Energy. They're a restaurant services company in Atlanta, Georgia. They will sanitize the front of the house and the back of the house. They'll also clean your vent hood, service your grease trap, and pick up your waste vegetable oil, where they take it to their refinery right there in the middle of Atlanta, and they refine it for the production of biodiesel fuel, making the air that you breathe inside of 285 is much cleaner and much healthier. It also takes a waste product and turns it into a renewable energy source, reducing the dependency on foreign oil. But you don't really have to reduce the dependency on foreign oil today, because the United States today is producing more oil than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. We are energy independent, thank you, President Trump. And that's the reason that I don't understand why the price of gasoline has gone up in our country today when we're not buying oil from the Middle East. I think the oil companies are just perpetrating the biggest fraud that we've ever seen by hiking the prices. I predict that they will report record income in their next earnings reports, and then the pundits will come out of the woodwork condemning them for all the, I think, ill-gotten gains that they've gotten by just propping up their prices by saying that it's because of the war with Iran. Again, intellectually, I ain't buying it. So I don't know what you think, but you're welcome to email me at johngordontruth@gmail.com and let me know what you think. Do you like our studio? Have you seen it? Anthony, you give us a wide shot here and show them our beautiful new studio where we're coming to you from West Palm Beach, Florida, every Saturday and Sunday from noon to 12 on the John Fredericks Radio Network, as well as on cdm.press. They're a digital platform, and they take our feed and put it back out on their social media. And we really appreciate the partnership we have with cdm.press. And we also come to you via the live stream every Saturday. And you've heard me say it on Rumble and Getter and YouTube, Facebook and X and Instagram. And folks, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate each and every one of you. Our channels are all trending and growing in the right direction. And we broke a huge record just this week. We released a video on Nigeria. It was not the video that I thought would propel us into a viral video, but I'm telling you, last week, I don't know if you saw our interview with the author. What was his name, Anthony? Mike Arnold. We had him on just a couple of weeks ago about Nigeria. We learned so much about the country. We learned that they're the 5th largest producer of oil in the world. They are a member of OPEC. They're a very large country, and they're run by a really pretty bizarre individual. And he commits, allegedly, but with a lot of solid proof, commits genocide inside the country. The interview was amazing. It was fantastic. I learned so much, and our listeners evidently liked it because they have liked it and they have shared it. And folks, are you sitting down? That interview garnered just this past week over 1 million views. I have sat in this chair for the last 3.5 years, and we work really hard to give you good quality content every week. And it's been kind of like watching paint dry. And we've had some great people on, like Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross. He was the Secretary of Commerce in Trump 1.0. We've had Bob Lighthizer, who was in charge of trade in the Commerce Department in Trump 1.0. Corey Lewandowski, who's been on the news lately. Governor Scott Walker, who sat right here in our new house with us a couple of months ago and did an interview. We've had Peter Schweitzer, who sat in that chair right over there in our studio. We had a great interview with him. So many others. And it is just a labor of love that I am privileged and able to do. And I'm so grateful to our thoughtful leaders. I'm thinking of Den, and I'm thinking of people that write me every day. I'm just really grateful to each of you, and John Fredericks, who has given me this air, and Todd Wood, who's put me on CDM Press, and a frequent listener, Keith, who sends me text every day of my life about things that we should look at and talk about. And I'm really grateful for each of you and appreciate it. But 1 million views is phenomenal. But what I was going to say is that we do all these other interviews, and sometimes I look a day or two later and we've gotten 10 views, and then 20 views and 30 views, and whoa, we got 750 views. We're getting there. And then we're back down to a dozen views on another interview. Now, the radio audience is different. We reliably have 100 to 150,000 people on the John Fredericks Radio Network every week from Nashville, Atlanta, Atlanta, Nashville, Richmond, Norfolk, Lynchburg, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Morgantown, West Virginia, and a whole bunch of other little towns around those areas where we have a very nice radio audience. And we can gauge that because they also, a lot of those listeners will join us on Getter, on the John Fredericks feed and our feed. And so we have a good metrics by which we can gauge the radio audience, estimated at 100 to 150, depends on the time of year, whether it's football season or not. But so we don't feel like the work is for naught, but we very much do want to build our presence over the web, because that is where news is gravitating to. Broadcast news is really diminishing, and they're losing audience by the day, but people are coming over to live streams and podcasts. We're also on Apple and Spotify, and what's the other one, Anthony? iHeartRadio podcast. And so we're out there. We're putting our content out. But I'll just tell you that 1 million views on one podcast that we've live streamed, that we leave up there, is very gratifying, and I appreciate it. If you would like to be a part of our movement, just go to one of those social media platforms that I've talked about, look for John Gordon Truth, and subscribe if you would. About 98% of you are not subscribed that listen to us on the radio, so if just half of you guys would subscribe, we would become instantly credible and viable. And it would allow us to get more and better guests, not to diminish the guests that we've had, because I really appreciate each and every one of them. But we can broaden our reach, we can get more guests and more content that you can benefit from every Saturday and throughout the week as we drop our podcast. Well, Anthony, while I'm reading this, let's hold up a bag of Bone Frog Coffee. They are our studio sponsor. And Anthony, you can show us a wide shot of the studio again, and even maybe bring us into your domain back there in the glass cage. And we really appreciate Bone Frog Coffee. If you're grinding through the day like I am, and you need that perfect kick without the jitters, grab Bone Frog Coffee. It's veteran-owned, founded by retired Navy SEAL Tim Cruikshank as a tribute to the fallen teammates of the Naval Special Warfare community. Each bag tells a story and gives a peek behind the curtain of special ops. If you don't already know, the Bone Frog, and I'll just hold up the flyer right there, The bone frog symbol is a sacred symbol of the SEAL teams that represent those who have given their lives in combat, and is a reminder of the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom and the American way of life. Now that's worth celebrating, folks. Every bag premium, small batch roasted from top shelf Arabica beans, smooth, low acid, no Robusta junk. Think bold blends like Frogman Dark Roast or the classic Bone Frog Medium. Tastes like freedom in a cup, don't you think? And here's the real deal. A chunk of every sale goes straight to helping SEAL vets and Gold Star families, aiming for $500,000 donated. You can be a part of that. Just order up a cup of coffee with a cause. Yeah, that's not a slogan. It's brotherhood brewed daily. Head to bonefrogcoffee.com, snag some K-Cups, whole beans, or merchandise. Use the promo code TRUTH. Start your day like I do. Fuel up, stay sharp, and remember, service before self. Support our vets and thank Bone Frog Coffee for sponsoring our studio. Check them out now at www.bonefrogcoffee.com, and don't forget to use that promo code TRUTH. Well, let's get to our next interview, our first interview today. And we're going to be, we sat here with A.M. Gold. She's a real brain and just a really down-to-earth, nice person. And then following that, we're going to talk to Drew Allen. He and I really got into it over Charlie Kirk's assassination, not because we were wanting to be contentious with one another, but because we wanted to get to the truth. So stay tuned with us now. Here is A.M. Gold. We are so pleased to have A.M. Gold back in the studio with us, and she, you may remember, is the author of this book, Shush Boom, with a lot of really good topics, ranging from COVID to, well, I don't know. She's from New York. She's got a new mayor. His name's Mandami. Hate to go political on you, A.M., but it's gotten a lot worse than I thought it would be, frankly. I thought he would come out with all this rhetoric and then it would just go by the wayside, but damned if he's not doubling down on it.
Yeah, I mean, every day something comes out and it's like, oh no.
So what do people in New York say? What do they think?
Well, I can't speak for everybody, but
people you run into.
Yeah, people I run into. I think
street?
Some people are really shocked by some of the things that he's actually accomplished so far. He's been there only 3 months, and a lot of things have changed. So you can feel a change in just the atmosphere. I think people are a little more tense, and it's just unpredictable at this point.
Do you happen to know how many billionaires have left New York?
I know a lot of companies have, for sure. Because
I just saw on Fox this week, I'm pretty sure, that the number of billionaires that have left are into the teens, which, out of 123, what's 18 or 19 billionaires, but it's the beginning of sounds like a trend to me.
I think the billionaires can afford to keep a residence there, so they're fine about that. But in terms of actually the quality of life and actually living day to day, I think a lot of them have gone for several years now.
But isn't it the taxes that they're trying to escape?
Yes, he's trying to increase it. I mean, the taxes are already 38%, and he's looking to do it as much as 40 to 50%, which would really be a lot difficult for a lot of people.
And you don't get any kind of a federal tax deduction for the state taxes you pay, do you?
Not that I know of.
I don't think so.
No.
So you have to pay federal taxes.
Federal tax as well.
On top of that.
Yes.
And by the time you pay sales tax.
Right.
And you have a property tax in New York?
I believe so, sure. I'm sure he's working on.
Oh my God! I mean, there's nothing left.
Yeah. Yes, that's reason enough. Yes, and also the rents. Strangely enough, the rents have been increasing substantially. A lot of rental buildings are going up 15, 20, 25%, and so that's quite interesting. I think maybe some people that I know are selling apartments and just moving into rentals to see what's going to happen.
I just wonder if no one in government in New York is aware of Detroit. I mean, you know, the government basically screwed up Detroit by their tax policies and the way that they allowed the center of the city to deteriorate. It seems like they don't ever learn the lesson.
Well, I think also they have a different agenda. I think it's hard to call it incompetence or neglect at this point. I think a lot of these groups have different agendas.
Well, Governor Hochul a couple of weeks ago basically started begging billionaires to come back and acted like it was a benevolent, out of benevolence, to be good to the people of New York, who elected this guy Madami as the socialist mayor that really is becoming more communist than just socialist.
I would agree with you. And I think she's going to have a rough time at the new governor race coming up soon.
And who's the odds-on favorite to beat her?
I think Blakeman. I think there's a gentleman, Blakeman, who's actually Trump's choice.
So you think it's would
I think
really
there's
be
a chance.
possible for
There's a chance to make waves in the governor race for sure.
Any whispers about what took Stefanik out of the race?
I think
she said it was because of her child, but she got in it knowing that she had the child.
I don't know
young
if that's
child.
true. That doesn't sound right to me. I think that Blakeman was put up against her, and I don't know. That was interesting though, because she's done well. She's had a great record, great track record. She's very loyal to New York. So I was disappointed, but hopefully he's going to be as strong, if not stronger, candidate.
I've always liked New York, and I think it's a shame that we're seeing things go the way that they are. And I hope that the adults will show up at some point and get the pendulum swinging back in the other direction, or else, I mean, I don't know. Grok seems to paint a pretty rosy picture compared to the news reports that I read of people exiting. And I know there are 32 New York banks who have actually announced and have started to come to South Florida for regional or national headquarters.
Sure, a lot of companies have done that. Yeah. I mean, look at London. You go to London, it's unrecognizable right now. And it doesn't take long to bring a city to its knees. So he's only been in Mandani for a few months. And people are feeling a tension, a sense of disunity. People are very on edge, a lot of people.
But he's an avowed Muslim, correct?
I think he's, for sure. I mean, I would say so. He's holding prayer sessions in the Gracie Mansion, and he's spending a lot of time at prayer sessions with different groups in the city.
It just makes me scratch my head that the people of New York would elect someone who actually was going to be their undoing in the long run.
Well, again, it's all about election integrity. We have a real problem in the country, both on a federal as well as a city and local level. And I mean, look at the judges. A lot of the judges are rogue judges. They've been put in, they've been installed. And so until we get our elections, purified, we're going to continue to have candidates that are very controversial and may not have been necessarily the chosen ones by the majority.
What about Judge Ingram? Does anybody ever see this guy? Does anybody know him?
Judge Ingram?
Yeah, I call him Judge Ignoramus. He's the one that valued Mar-a-Lago at $18 million.
Right. He's probably quiet these days.
Yeah, we haven't heard much out of him since Trump became president. I think he's hiding, hoping that, well, actually,
I'm sure he hasn't forgotten about him.
As strategic as Trump is, he might just go with Judge Ingram's official verdict that Mar-a-Lago is only worth $18 million.
Right.
Who's going to contradict the judge who was a music teacher before he went on the bench? And that could be Trump's tax return now in Florida.
Right? Wouldn't that be something?
I'd be interested to see what the tax assessor in Palm Beach, how they
well, his neighbors would
that.
enjoy that as well.
So we talked about the war in Iran and the influence that Israel had in getting us into the war. Have you had any subsequent thoughts about that? And who's running the United States? Is it Donald Trump or is it Netanyahu? And What's the scuttlebutt in New York?
Well, I mean, there are two trains of thoughts. There's the thought that Israel has a tremendous chokehold over the country and has for many years, and not just with this president, but many presidents. And then there's the other train of thought that people feel that Trump is in control. He knows what he's doing. There's been a plan laid out, an agenda set forth by him, by the military over the years. They do consider, many of us feel that it's a military sting operation that's been going on to eradicate the deep state in a lot of different parts of our society. So it's, I don't know if any one person really knows, as you said, as we discussed before, that wars are very messy, and sometimes commanders have to say and do things and not, and hide what they're actually going to do and why they're doing it. So I think the jury is out, and we still have to wait and see what happens.
Well, connect the dots for us. Where are you coming from, and the relationship to the deep state and the war in Iran?
Well, I mean, I think behind every war there are a lot of scenarios that are going on, and people don't necessarily know the full extent of why we're even in the war. And I think the same applies here. I think there's a lot of different reasons, and some of which we're sure to find out, and others that we may never know.
I think it's undeniable that the CIA was in Iran, destabilizing it, and they were probably working with Mossad as a lead up to the war.
Yes.
But you think the deep states, who got us into the war?
Well, I think the deep states they thrive on wars. And it's not just in our country. There's a deep state in Israel. There's a deep state in a lot of in England. There's a lot of deep states, and so I think maybe he's cleaning out a lot of this. Is going on for hundreds of years, from a financial standpoint, from a political standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint. There's a lot to be eradicated, and I think this is part of what he's been doing.
Trump went into this war. I said when he did that I felt that Trump was going to find out the hard way that wars were much easier to start than they are to end.
Right.
And I think that's what we're witnessing firsthand right now. And we had to have the midterms looming.
Right.
Meanwhile, oil is $100 a barrel, up from $50. Gas prices are over $5 in some parts of the country.
Right.
That's not good news for the Republicans in the midterms, do you think?
Well, I think that we still have a ways to go. We still have a few months left. He's supposed to have a celebration. The U.S. is supposed to have a celebration, 250th anniversary coming up in July. So between now and then, there's a lot of work that needs to be done for people to be able to celebrate. Right now, the gas at the stations, groceries, the average citizen is having a lot of problems. And so in order for them to show up and celebrate, they need to be able to be taken care of.
Yes,
So
affordability.
Exactly.
That seems to be on the lips of every politician right now.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's playing into the hands of the Republicans. But then again, there's Eric Swalwell that we can now beat up on with good reason.
Yes.
I mean, I have disliked that guy for as long as I can recall, ever since he was outed with having an affair with Fang Fang, the Chinese spy. And I think the karma is so wonderful. And I don't relish, I don't celebrate this stuff. I really don't. Because at the end of the day, he is a human being and he is flawed and he did err. But it's hard not to take some measure of pleasure in that Nancy Pelosi, when he was caught with Fang Fang, and he's on the United States Congress's Intel Committee.
Can you imagine?
And he's sleeping with a Chinese spy, and Nancy Pelosi has the nerve to say, oh, I don't worry about Eric Swalwell.
Right.
Well, I mean, I wonder if she worries about Fang Fang, the Chinese spy who immediately disappeared and went back to China.
Right.
It's hard not to take some measure of enjoyment out of seeing his demise, given what a untruthful and unfaithful person he has been, not only to his wife and family, but really to our country.
For sure. I mean, it's very sad for the family. So I don't relish in something like that. But I think that what it does do is it puts other people on notice, because there's so much of that. I mean, he's not the only one, and people are going to think twice now before they do things like that. So I think it has to have some kind of accountability.
Every time there's a scandal, we think that it's going to deter behavior, and then
they just get a slap on the wrist.
We had Weinstein, and then we had all the people, Matt Lauer, who were Me Too'd, and basic human nature and frailties don't seem to go away.
No, that is true.
Meanwhile, we now have learned as an part and parcel of, as an outgrowth of this, that there are memos that have surfaced between him and Adam Schiff, who was the chairman of the House Committee on Intelligence, that Schiff knew unqualifiedly that the so-called whistleblower relative to the messiness with the Ukraine and the allegation that Trump was trying to influence the election by working with the Ukraine, that the whistleblower concocted it.
Yes.
There was no truth to it at all.
Right.
And guess who one of his friends were? The guy from the FBI, what was his name? Strzok?
Oh, yes, Strzok.
Yeah,
Yep.
that guy,
Adam
Strzok, yeah.
Adam Strzok or Peter Strzok.
Peter Strzok, that's
yes.
right. Very good.
Yes.
Yeah, he was in the middle of it. After
it's the same players. It's
already out of the FBI,
yeah.
and he's still meddling.
Yes.
And his punishment for getting kicked out of the FBI is to be a commentator on MS Now, or whatever they call it.
Well, they always seem to go back at the end. They resign, or they're let go, and you find them on CNN or one of those channels.
Right.
It's like that's the next step down. It's really something. But I think that there's some order to this madness, and I think there is a big reveal, and I think these people are there's a lot slowly coming out over what we've been through for the last several years. I mean, it's time. People are tired, and they want to see some accountability. And
we talk about that virtually every week on The Truth.
Yes.
And what do we have to do to get accountability?
I think that one of the first things we have to do is we have to get rid of a lot of the judges, because if you don't take care of the justice system and it's not renewed and good people are put on there, then you're going to continually, it's just an in and out kind of situation. So they have to do something about the justice system. Otherwise, these people are never going to pay for their bad behavior.
Yeah. Well, that's a great observation. So there was a time that I was calling for the demise of McConnell, McCarthy, and what was the lady who was the head of the RNC, who was Mitt Romney's niece?
Oh, yes.
I can't believe I can't remember
her name. Yes. I don't remember it. It's tip of tongue.
the three M's,
yes.
McConnell, McCarthy, and gosh, I knew who you were talking about. It's bad getting old. But now I'm calling for the destruction, removal, downfall of the three S's: Strzok, Swalwell, and I won't rest until Schiff is no longer on the national stage.
Those three really need some rehabilitation.
This guy is bad.
Yes.
He brought this country through a second impeachment knowing that it was a fraud.
Yeah, he lied constantly on television every evening.
He had incontrovertible truth, and his incontrovertible truth was a whistleblower that we've now gotten the document that Tulsi Gabbard just released this week that proves that he had no firsthand knowledge of any contact that Trump had with the Ukraine. And he made it, and he acknowledges now that he made it up, saying that he relied on second and third hand information.
He put the American people through a hellish nightmare every night on the news for like 4 years straight. And there has got to be something that happens as a result of that.
And
It's really a trade.
people of California
it's a trade.
punish him by electing him to the United States Senate. I mean, what is the matter with this society we live in?
Right. He wouldn't make it in corporate America very long.
Well, I hope he doesn't make it in the United States Senate or on the national stage much longer. Well, it is a pleasure to have you back with us. And you're working on a second book.
Right.
Do you want to tease the book a little bit? Tell us what we have to look forward to.
Well, it's going to be some other very interesting topics. Election integrity is one of them. And
i.e. Adam Schiff. I wonder how much that played into his election in California.
And I'm also going to focus on some of the unsung heroes of the last several years. There's some really extraordinary people that have done incredible things, all very different walks of life. And so I'd like to definitely pay tribute to those people that have held us up and you know, are really admirable to have learned their stories. And so,
well, I think that would be great. It would be nice to shine a light on our unsung heroes, one of whom right now is a very good friend of mine. He's in his mid-20s, and a mile from where we're sitting right now, he just plucked 3 people out of the water who had a horrific boating accident. And his name is Sean, and I've invited him to come on The Truth and tell his story. But one of the individuals lost their leg, and the other was really bleeding out in the water. And Sean went out on his jet ski and pulled them to the shore and to safety, and for the EMS to come and get them. So it is uplifting when we hear stories like that, because we focus on the Strucks and the Schwalwells and the Schiffs and the McConnells and the McCarthy and the... Oh, Anthony, I'm surprised you haven't dug it out for us by now. Wake up!
Well, I just wanted to add that there's, you know, we talk all the time about the corruption and depravity and all of that, but at the same time, there's some people out there doing really exceptional things and really commendable, and they should be acknowledged. And as you said, they should... we should, you know, put a light on them. And so that's what we hope to do in the second book.
Well, I'll conduct a little experiment with you.
Yes.
And I shared this with our listeners a couple of weeks ago, but what do you see on this piece of paper?
I see a dot.
Yes, and that's what I used to say with my salespeople who were complaining about their jobs, and I'd say that... They say, well, I see a dot. And I say, well, don't you see an awful lot of white around here as well? And that's
the cup half full, half empty?
Yeah, and I think that's what your book is doing, is exposing all the goodness that is in the world. And there's a lot more of that than the dot.
Absolutely.
But as just in human nature, I think we have a tendency to focus on the dot a lot. And so I'm glad that you're going to write a book that is going to be inspirational and uplifting. I think our culture and society need that right now.
Right. Well, Shush Shush Boom was really about what happened the last few years and drawing insight and having people think critically and connect the dots of what's really happened. And as we move into the second volume, it's going to be more of what's happening as we move forward and what we can look forward to and what we can focus on people doing great things.
Well, in the meantime, it's not too late to get your copy of Shush Shush Boom by A.M. Gold. And we're really looking forward to the second book.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for coming on The Truth
today. Yes, it's great to see you as well.
We really appreciate Bone Frog Coffee. If you're grinding through the day like I am and you need that perfect kick without the jitters, grab Bone Frog Coffee. It's veteran-owned, founded by retired Navy SEAL Tim Cruikshank as a tribute to the fallen teammates of the Naval Special Warfare community. Each bag tells a story and gives a peek behind the curtain of special ops. If you don't already know, the Bone Frog, and I'll just hold up the flyer right there, the Bone Frog symbol is a sacred symbol of the SEAL teams that represent those who have given their lives in combat, and is a reminder of the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom and the American way of life. Now that's worth celebrating, folks. Every bag premium. Small batch roasted from top shelf Arabica beans, smooth, low acid, no Robusta junk. Think bold blends like Frogman Dark Roast or the classic Bone Frog Medium. Tastes like freedom in a cup, don't you think? And here's the real deal. A chunk of every sale goes straight to helping SEAL vets and Gold Star families, aiming for $500,000 donated. You can be a part of that. Just order up a cup of coffee with a cause. Yeah, that's not a slogan. It's brotherhood brewed daily. Head to bonefrogcoffee.com, snag some K-Cups, whole beans, or merchandise. Use the promo code TRUTH. Start your day like I do. Fuel up, stay sharp, and remember, service before self. Support our vets and thank Bone Frog Coffee for sponsoring our studio. Check them out now at www.bonefrogcoffee.com, and don't forget to use that promo code TRUTH. I don't know what it says when you're 70 and you're looking up to a 40-year-old, but that's the case with my next guest. His name is Drew Allen. He also is a publicist with our PR firm that helps us book guests. Drew is a prolific writer, and he also has his own podcast, but he's written a compelling book, The Clinton Hoax, the Obama Coup. Drew, welcome to The Truth.
Oh, it's good to be with you, brother. I'm really grateful. Thank you.
Well, welcome back. So what inspired you to write this book other than you stumbled on the truth, I guess?
Yeah, well, it was a couple things. I mean, I started writing this book last August, and it coincided with Tulsi Gabbard declassifying a bunch of documents related to Trump-Russia collusion. And I'd been studying and following Trump-Russia collusion for a long time. I was obviously very invested and interested in the story. And because I had studied it for so long, I really understood what was going on. And when I saw the declassified documents, it started to put the missing final pieces of that puzzle together. But it was, it was very confusing for a lot of Americans because, we've dealt with 10 years of this, a lot of spin from the left and the media, a lot of lies, acronyms. And this is, and I always understood this to be one of the greatest attacks on a republic in American history. And I really, really needed and want the American people to understand exactly what happened with that. And honestly, I also wanted to, hopefully, if possible, use this book as a mechanism to help put some of these, criminals in jail where they belong.
Well, is that ever going to happen? Have you read Roger Stone's book, The Clinton War on Women?
No.
It is a compelling book. I'm telling you, it takes you through the very beginning of the Clinton dynasty, starting from when he was Attorney General of Arkansas all the way through the White House. But do you know that he actively participated in allowing cocaine to be flown into Arkansas? And according to Roger Stone in his book, he was working hand in hand with the CIA to do that. And they were using it as a way to raise money, if I'm not mistaken, for the Iran-Contra debacle, but a whole lot of other stuff too. How is that even possible? I mean, here are the people who swore an oath to enforce the laws of the United States and protect the U.S. citizens, and then we find out that they're actually a part of a crime syndicate working hand in hand with the mob, flooding our country with coke. And then, Clinton himself had a bad coke habit, according to Roger Stone. And I guess they don't call her Killary for no reason. I mean, what insight do you have?
Oh, man. Well, I mean, the body count alone that surrounds the Clinton family is shocking. I mean, statistical improbability of them not being involved in some dark activities.
So how many people?
Well, there's 20-something people, I think, on that list. But I mean, it's stunning. I mean, people can go and just do, even on Wikipedia, I think you can find the Clinton Body Count Initiative or something, or I might have come up with that term, the Clinton Body Count Initiative or something. But it's a lot, and we know that family is corrupt. I mean, what you're telling me about the cocaine stuff, it doesn't really shock me. I mean, I think especially now that we learn about the Southern Poverty Law Center, right? Their hate map, about how they were actually funding the very racism, that they were claiming to fight. All of these things just show you how diabolical. I mean, the Democrat Party today, it is a criminal organization. I live in California, right? I mean, the Democrat Party here, it's like I live in a banana republic. I mean, they control everything. You've got hundreds of billions in fraud, and they just turn and look the other way. They don't investigate anything.
Well, because you're asking them to investigate themselves, I think. No wonder they don't want an investigation.
That's right. I mean, look at this is so like with Epstein stuff. The only thing I want to point out is that we recently had knowledge, of course, that Eric Swalwell was involved in allegations of rape, but certainly sexual, misbehavior. And this has been happening currently, right now. And so it's interesting because the same people that were demanding all the, Epstein documents and everything else, which is important, that should happen. A lot of that stuff happened a decade ago. You've got this stuff happening in Congress right now with Epstein and others, who's the tip of the iceberg. And none of these people are demanding an investigation or into the current activity in Congress. Like, why don't we focus on the victims that extend beyond Swalwell that are happening now? And to your point, they're not going to investigate themselves. I mean, there's an $18 million slush fund that we pay for, right? That has been used to, pay off a bunch of women who were suing, members of Congress. Let's call it hush money. And there's been no transparency. So I think it's interesting that they're all in on, trying to get some light on Epstein. But when it comes to Swalwell and these other things that are happening currently, these women victims, no, let's not look there.
Well, it just supports my belief and my allegation that the federal government, our federal government, is rotten to its core. And everywhere I look, I get validation of that belief. And you're exactly right. I mean, can you imagine that the taxpayers of the United States are paying hush money to protect congressmen who have inappropriately engaged in sexual activity with staffers and people that with whom they have power over? I mean, it's just really hard to imagine and to believe that could take place. And where's Trump? Where is Todd Blanche now? Where was Pam Bondi? I mean, these are crimes. They should be prosecuted, not glossed over and buried under the rug somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, Pam Bondi was obviously a big problem. I think that we see what a big problem she was because we've seen a lot of activity since, Blanche. I mean, I'm very pleased with Blanche so far. I mean, I'm actually very happy with the strategy they're employing to go after Comey. A lot of people don't understand, why aren't they going after him for Trump-Russia collusion specifically and stuff like that? And it's because they're playing to win. I mean, Trump-Russia collusion, you got to deal with statute of limitations on different issues. So it's 5 years. So the deep state intentionally ran out that clock, slow walking documents and everything else. So, what they're employing now is let's go after him after this over 86-47 because you don't need to have, 12 other FBI, people come in and have he said, she said. You don't have to have a 2-3 year long situation trying to prove conspiracy to defraud the United States, which is the only statute they could really use that would overcome statute of limitations issues. So, and a grand jury in North Carolina, they indicted him. So, I think this is they're doing this because they believe this is the strongest case they can make to bring about justice. And I don't care. It's like Al Capone. That's how I relate it to. It's Al Capone. They couldn't get Al Capone on a lot of the criminal activity or any of it, frankly. So what do? Tax evasion. That's how they got him and put him away. That was still justice. And so if they can get James Comey on this, I'm more than happy.
Oh, I am too. I mean, Leona Helmsley was not found guilty of tax evasion, actually, which was what she was accused of. Martha Stewart was not convicted of insider trading. They were both convicted of perjury, and that is an easier hurdle and burden to achieve in the law. So I'm like you. I don't care what the allegation is. I mean, obviously, I care if it's not true. Yeah. But what ultimately, and I think what the American people are finally now waking up to is that this government is very corrupt and that we are lied to and that there is not transparency And Comey is the poster child of that, where he abused his power as the head of the FBI. He surrounded himself with similarly behaving people like Strzok and Lisa Page. And I think that my optimism is that slowly but surely, and I think it's because, frankly, of people like you and me and Bongino and Tucker and Megan, all these citizen journalists who are now reporting the truth. We're not paid off by the federal government, as we know the mainstream media is. And so the American people have left the mainstream media and are turning to The Truth with John Gordon and your podcast, Drew, and all the others that are out there to get the truth. And I think we're starting to actually have an impact. Obviously, I think Donald Trump is having an impact because he has been the most victimized person, one of the most, if not the most, in our country by weaponization of our own government against him. And I think that he is on a mission. And I think we're watching the deep state being deconstructed right before our very eyes. And just an hour north of me, John Brennan is under investigation. He's before a grand jury in the Southern District of Florida. Judge Cannon, the same judge that had the Jack Smith case against Trump, which she got rid of. And I'm hopeful that this whole demonic, evil group of people can be surgically removed from the federal government and the national stage, and it may allow us to actually get back to our roots and our foundational values, which are Judeo-Christian beliefs, where the truth, honesty, integrity, the oath actually means something.
Yeah. And look, I mean, the accountability, the importance of having accountability of justice for Comey, for Brennan, for these people, as many as we can get. And again, you and I aren't talking about lawfare. We're talking about actual law. Laws were broken. And as a matter of fact, as it relates to Trump-Russia collusion in particular, we know for a fact many people did violate the law. But the problem was, of course, is that they got off because of D.C. juries or because you have the same corrupt, prosecutors that are not punishing them. And we just saw a story today about how the Biden administration was going to extreme lengths to go after Christians in particular, making fun of Christians as being a cult and so on and so forth. And so if you had somebody who violated the FACE Act from the left side, they would go for a minimum sentence. But if they were a Christian standing at an abortion center or something like that, they're going to prosecute them to the maximum extent of the law as possible. Same thing with J6 and everything else. So, this has to be dismantled. And the only way to dismantle this, of course, is for there to be repercussions, right? And that's why,
absolutely,
that's why they made Martha Stewart, an example. To try and, deter other people. The Martha Stewart thing was so absurd, by the way, but nonetheless, they go after somebody like that. That's a big name, a big billionaire, to, strike fear in the hearts of other people. And we need to be doing that, especially for these politicians and those involved in the deep state that did this to the country, because, they become emboldened. And one of my observations is, 2016, when Trump-Russia collusion, as horrendous as that was, an attack on this republic, then you get a 2020 stolen election, and then you get lawfare in 2024. There's an escalation, and it hasn't stopped.
Drew, you and I are on the same page, and I've said on this program over and over again, you're a student of Russia collusion. I'm a student of JFK's assassination, and I've studied it for 63 years. I could go through the litany of things that I've done. My listeners don't want to hear it again because I've told them about 100 times and in 400 broadcasts. But the fact of the matter is, our own government, elements inside our government, including LBJ, J. Edgar Hoover, and Allen Dulles, pulled off the assassination. Hoover covered it up. Okay. The president is dead. There's nothing that we're going to do to bring him back. But here's the point, and it's the one that you were just alluding to. Without an admission and a transparency around that, we convey to every bureaucrat in America, local, state, national, school boards, water commissioner, dog catcher. That if you're in government, you can commit a crime. You can literally get away with murder if you have the power. And that has to stop. I'm so hyped up on JFK because it's indefensible. There is no argument in 63 years that I have been able to uncover, read, or discern that would in any way justify that act. It was a callous, cold-blooded display of evil in our country, and it was for pure political power, nothing else. It was a coup d'etat, and I don't know why it's taken our country this many years to embrace the notion that that is what happened, because Oliver Stone told us 30 years ago. We should have all paid attention then.
Yeah, and I'm not a student, but just because of my age and I haven't studied it enough, I'm not a student of not only the JFK assassination, but even that kind of his short term and legacy as much. But I do see some parallels between JFK and Trump in the sense that JFK in many ways was disrupting, obviously, what the establishment wanted at that time. And of course, there were issues with, his positions on foreign policy, obviously, which I think is where a lot of people go with the motivation for the CIA or someone like that to get involved and take him out. But it's just strange because it's so crazy, because many people believe too that, they helped rig elections, to get JFK elected. And then once JFK is elected, of course, then they see a need to take him out. But JFK was kind of that person in the era as well. Obviously, we saw what happened after he was assassinated, what happened in this country with the politics. And then, Trump was that way too. I mean, Trump obviously was a disruptor on a different scale, I think, because of the time and how corrupt things have gotten. But I think the big thing for people to realize is whether it's the 60s or it's today, we've been dealing with this power struggle and this type of corruption for a long time. But it's only recently that someone like you, I think, John, with your, conspiracy theories about JFK, well, you kind of get your day in court now, because every American now can see clear as day that this corruption exists and that there is actual attempts and motivation for people in this government to try and destroy and take out those they don't like, that don't fit into the cog. And to go back to the beginning of what you're saying about Dan Bongino, I thought it was pretty striking the way he spoke with Sean Hannity about how he says, I am terrified, because he sees what they were willing to do to people and how no one would speak up. And for Dan Bongino to say now, after seeing that, his life has changed because he fears that they're going to come for him every single day. I mean, that's scary. And the government should fear the people. But instead, we have a situation that is wrong. It's anti-constitutional, where we sit here living in fear of our government.
Well, and I mean, you think Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk?
Well, I do. Yes. My assertion is that I believe it was Tyler Robinson for sure. But my take on that is tied, especially into the fact that we have seen violence from the left in this country for a decade now, ever since they decided to settle on a strategy that Donald Trump was Hitler, that he colluded with Putin. And so we saw Rand Paul's ribs broken by a neighbor. We saw Bernie Sanders supporter try and kill the congressional Republicans practicing baseball, and Steve Scalise almost died. We have seen this type of violence in this country for a long time, especially in the transgender community, which I've written extensively about, that particular militant arm of the left, which has been proven, whether it is in Nashville, where you have Audrey Hale, who went in and targeted, those kids and killed many of them at the religious school, Christian school, and her manifesto read exactly like a Barack Obama speech or a CNN panel talking about race and everything else.
Okay, all right. Well, that's fair. I don't disagree with you on that, but let's don't convict Tyler Robinson as guilty by association. Not that he had an association with a woman, other than that they were in the trans world, whatever. But I mean, I think that I would give you a snowball's chance in hell that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. I could spend the next hour going through my perceptions on it, but we're told that he climbed up on the roof, that he assembled the rifle while he was there. He took the one shot. It did not exit Charlie's body, a 30-06 with no exit wound. Really? I'm sorry, I don't buy that. And then he took the time to disassemble the rifle, put it in a knapsack, run across the roof, drop it down, jump down off the roof, run into a field, and put the gun back together again and leave it in a pristine fashion on a blanket in the middle of a field. I'm sorry, Drew, BS. It's deep state. I totally believe that Candace is on to something. I don't know who killed Charlie. I'm pissed off about it because I knew Charlie well. Everybody's, Charlie and I were good friends. Charlie and I were not good friends, okay? But we were close acquaintances. I saw him once or twice a year, every year for the last 8 years. He was the most brilliant human being I've ever known. Almost as smart as you, I should say, Drew. But, I mean, he was just an amazing person, and I felt like that he was an American treasure. And I was sitting in Norman, Oklahoma. My wife and I had landed there to refuel and to see our middle son. And we were sitting having a nice lunch. We were really enjoying being with our son. And somewhere over the television that was up on the wall was a news flash that Charlie Kirk had been shot. And it was like I had been kicked in the stomach. But, there's so much sketchy stuff surrounding it. Charlie was distancing himself from Israel. He had written a memo 8 days earlier saying there were financial improprieties at Turning Point that needed to be investigated in order to Doge audit. Erica Kirk, I'm sorry, she is not behaving as a grieving widow, in my opinion. And there's all sorts. I totally think that she is one of the most duplicitous people I've ever witnessed, because she is not who she pretends to be based on the research that I've seen and the videos that I've watched and the articles that I've read. So none of that proves anything. None of it proves anything. But what it does suggest is that there are a lot of suspects that need to be closely examined. Yet we closed that investigation the same day that it was opened, when we arrested Tyler Robinson after he dined in a Dairy Queen. 2 hours later, he did not act like someone that was guilty of anything. He was out notoriously in broad daylight eating a hot dog at Dairy Queen, and he did not appear as if someone who was the subject of a nationwide manhunt. I'm sorry, none of it makes sense to me. I think that that whether it was Mossad or working with the CIA, or was it somebody in Turning Point or people in Turning Point, Erica certainly had a lot to gain. I don't know. I don't want to sound like a lunatic. I really don't. But the narrative that we've been fed, I mean, Drew, you're smart. You know better than that. Well, you can't possibly believe that.
I 100% believe it was him.
And I'm sick of it.
I do believe it was him because, I mean, I understand.
Well, explain to me why the 30-06 did not leave an exit wound.
Well, I mean,
have you seen, have you ever fired a 30-06?
Yeah, I'm
it'll knock you on your butt.
So
it's so strong. And the neck is one of the most porous places on the human body. And it doesn't have to travel very far. It's just ludicrous.
Well, I mean, I have seen people cover it that have explained it in terms of, the type of bullet it was specifically, no real casing. And that, I talked to a Delta Force.
Oh, no casing? Huh? It said, catch this.
No. I mean, the style of the bullet itself, I don't remember exactly all the specifics of the explanation, but I've watched numerous explanations. I talked to a Delta Force operator who was a client of mine who was a sniper, and his opinion as a Delta Force sniper was that Tyler Robinson did do it. So he didn't think that it was impossible at all. And in fact, he thought, it was kind of amateur, because if you were a professional, you would have hit him in the head, or you would have hit him in the heart. And this guy, he thought actually looked like he missed because he hit. Well,
maybe he just missed. But yeah. What do you make of the security guards that almost simultaneously were looking at their watch? And then what do you make of the security guard that was doing this?
Well,
30 seconds, 20 seconds before that Charlie was shot. And what do you make of Mikey McCoy, who the moment, I don't mean a second later, I mean the moment he was shot, got on his phone and was like this. He didn't dial a number. Was the person already connected to him? Who was he talking to? His father said he was talking to him. He said he was talking to somebody else. And he casually walks off the set and walks to the parking lot. I mean, it is all so sketchy. And then the head of security says that they weren't allowed to operate drones because of the Salt Lake City air traffic control area. Well, I happen to be a pilot. You can operate a drone below the shelf of the class Bravo, and that far away, you would have been below the shelf. Yet, eyewitnesses, many of them, reported that there were drones flying over the venue. I'm just saying, Drew, open your mind.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, we're looking at reactions of people. We're trying to explain behaviors away in a tragic situation.
Is that how you would have behaved if your best friend had just gotten murdered?
I don't even think about their reactions. I just think about Tyler Robinson and the evidence that he was in fact the killer and what the motivations would be. And so, I mean, he's somebody whose parents turned him in. I mean, this would be a very, very elaborate deep state thing for his parents to turn him in. For them to fabricate
deeper.
Conversations between him and notes he left behind and conversations his roommate, other people around him. I mean, I think there might be a deeper conspiracy here, but I don't think that it's related to, Israel or something like that. I think that there are.
I don't know. I'm not saying it's related to Israel, but I'm saying that they were on Charlie's case big time. Everybody was aware of it. 2 donors withdrew millions of dollars of support. They were pushing back on him hard about letting Tucker come on the Turning Point annual meeting. And Tucker said absolutely not, that he wasn't going to withdraw the invitation. I'm not saying that that's evidence of murder. I'm saying it is smoke that needs to be looked into. And, you talk about Gerald Posner wrote a book, Rush to Judgment, about the Kennedy assassination. This is, to me, looks like the same chapter, just a different verse. Change the names. The similarities are remarkable. And all I want is the truth. I'm not trying. I don't have an agenda. I'm not after anybody. I'm not a Jew hater. I do feel like in this country that, and maybe it's just human nature, that we too often punish the victims. Mm-hmm. And I have considered that in the case of Erica. I mean, if she did not have anything to do with it, then shame on the people that are sullying her name. But her behavior to me is bizarre. I think a lot of it is explainable, but still, it needs to be looked at and not glossed over. And that's the part that's troubling to me. I guess you think that Thomas Matthew Crooks actually fired the shot at Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania.
I think there's more uncertainty about the Thomas Matthew Crooks stuff than there is related to the Charlie Kirk assassination. I mean, whether you think the evidence was fabricated or not, there was much more evidence and information about the motivations.
1 o'clock, so does Drew.
Regarding, the Charlie Kirk assassination than Thomas Matthew Crooks. I mean, that I would love to get more information out of. I mean, I don't know who the shooter would have been other than him. I mean, to me, I look at it and it looks like
Maxwell Urich. Go take a look.
Okay. I mean,
I'd love to spend another half hour with you, Drew, but you've got parental responsibilities with your daughter. I'm so grateful that you came on today, and I certainly don't want to cut you short. You go ahead and have the last word, and we'll wrap up. And tell us where we can get the book. How's it doing? I love the title, Clinton Hoax, Obama Coup. I mean, that is really a catchy title. and it does have the ring of truth to it.
Well, it's a succinct way as you can explain what happened with Trump Russia collusion. It was a Clinton hoax turned into an Obama coup, and he has a way of usurping even the worst Clinton, scandals because he's more demonic than even she is. But the book's been doing really well. I mean, I was on War Room with Steve Bannon, and that was great for some publicity on the book too. But no, it's doing well. I mean, look, it's coinciding with events right now. It's important that people understand what happened so that we can prevent these types of things in the future. And you can get, I mean, Amazon's the best place because of, visibility and so on and so forth. But, unlike my last book, John, on Charlie Kirk, that one was censored. So few people could even buy it. Amazon censored the crap out of that book. But this book has not been censored, John, somehow. This one is allowed.
Well, why were they censoring you writing about Charlie Kirk? What was the theme of the book?
Well, it was...
Why did they want to suppress
I mean, it was called For Christ and Country, the martyrdom of Charlie Kirk. And I mean, a lot of it is about the left's attack on Christianity, what we need to do moving forward, how we can become our own best version of Charlie Kirk, because you can't replace the guy. But it's a message of hope. But I also really get into left-wing violence and how they cover up what they've done in this country. So, some of the stuff we've talked about is in there. I mean, it was written at a time before, kind of Candace Owens was really pushing out a lot of the alternative theories and things like that. But given the recent assassination against Trump, the third attempt, that's what this focuses on. Left-wing violence, how the SPLC and the Anti-Defamation League lie to us and tell us that you and I are the greatest threats of the country while ignoring all the left-wing violence. So that's kind of what it does. But I don't know, man. It's crazy. I've never had that happen to a book. I've written 4 books. That was the only one that they wouldn't carry a Kindle. Barnes & Noble won't carry the book. So it's really an insane situation. But nonetheless, here we are.
That's just crazy. I don't understand that. I mean, when I grew up, and maybe we were just living in a fantasy world and we thought that it was the way we were told that it was. But I always felt like that people won and lost political campaigns or arguments based on the validity of their thoughts and their ability to communicate them. And that the people who won the public opinion would get the prize. Now it doesn't seem there's a competition for ideas, more of we're going to suppress your thought. We're not going to let your thoughts get amplified. And if they do, and you get so large and you start to have an impact, we resolve it just by shooting and killing you. Yeah. And I think that's what happened with Charlie. I truly do. And I could be wrong, but most people my age will readily side with the authority figures and fall in line with what we've been told. I'm just wired a little differently, and I just tell it like I see it. And Drew, I really appreciate your coming on. I've loved our conversation. I appreciate the fact that we can have a spirited debate and still love each other.
I live for this,
and
John.
I mean, I don't say that lightly. I very much like you,
John. I live for this. This is the most. I would rather be doing this type of conversation all day, every day. So thank you.
The only thing that could make it better if you were sitting over here and we were having a beer, but then things could have gotten out of hand.
No. I'm going to get out there one of these days. And it would be
Come on, we'll rock star it. All right. Well, thank you, Drew Allen. He's an author. He's a thought leader and just a really good guy. It needs a little nurturing to open up his brain to see some things that are out there, but it's a process, folks. Drew Allen, thanks for coming on The Truth today.
Thanks, John.